I bought the graveyard slot at the radio station. What the on-air light didn't forgive. I didn't buy the graveyard slot because I ever wanted to be a DJ. I bought it because dead air is brutal and honest, and I needed a room where silence finds you for cheating. If you fix the sputtering HVAC in a community radio booth with 2 zip ties and a borrowed nut driver, the engineer remembers. I had. So when I texted Ruth at 11:12 p.m., she called back with the flat affection of a woman who lives on coffee and FCC rules. "You can have 1:00 to 2:00 a.m., she said. "Board's yours, mics 2 and 3 are hot, dump button works. Keep the logs. And seriously, no trials after 2. She laughed like someone who had watched couples attempt sincerity on air and lose the fight to weather and adjectives. At 11:36 p.m., my phone delivered the sentence my marriage could type in its sleep. Loadout ran late, quick debrief became a drink, might crash at the office, don't wait up. Joe doesn't lie, she arranges. She can turn donors into patrons and volunteers into gravity. For a year, we've been excellent at mercy and stingy with appetite. That ledger got dangerous when Theo, the operations lead every room eventually invents, began showing up with Gaffer in his tote and Patience in his shoulders. He stands exactly one respectful step from married women, the distance that keeps events from becoming press releases and husbands from sleeping. The studio lived in a building that used to be a dentist's office and still smelled faintly of fluoride and winter coats. I signed the overnight log, took the keycard that unlocks the outer door only if you believe in yourself, and climbed the narrow steps to the booth. The on-air light glowed cherry, a small authority. The console pouted at me with sliders and confidence. A black clock above the window counted my intentions. I set 2 paper cups of coffee on the rack next to the old CD player and waited in a room that misunderstands secrets as content. They came at 12:57, the door's magnetic click overpronouncing its consonants. Joe first, hair pinned in the shape competence requires, blazer folded on her arm like Mercy on layaway. Theo behind her, sleeves shoved, tote at his hip, eyes doing the perimeter math men who lift after midnight teach themselves to survive other people's narratives. He saw me first, the skill of men who carry equipment and consciences, and stopped one respectful step inside the booth with his hands visible and his mouth closed. Good men audition for furniture that way. "You bought the hour," Joe said, a half-smile she uses when she's ready to forgive the room before it asks. "I needed a place where the silence finds you," I said. "Say it where the mics can hear." Theo looked at the dump button like it might absolve him. "Need me?" he asked her, not me. "I need you exactly there," she said, pointing to the faded tape line beyond which the board op keeps elbows. "If I want less distance, I'll use your name." He obeyed. Good men do. That's half what keeps them good and half what makes them unbearable to resent. I slid down mic 3 and pushed my chair back from the board so I wouldn't pretend this was performance. "We're off air until the legal ID," I said. "But the room has opinions anyway. Say it." "In an elevator," she said, "because fate is lazy and syndicates its worst scripts. 2 weeks ago, between floors and nouns, I kissed him, quick, mint, rehearsal. He stepped back. He said my name like a lock. I hated him for being the adult. I hated me for liking that he was. Tonight I almost followed the part of me that loves doors more than rooms. I came here." "Do you want me to hit him?" I asked, which is the stupid line men say when they want a job description instead of a feeling. "I want you to choose me," she said. "Not rescue, appetite." The clock tripped 1:00. Without thinking, I hit the legal ID. Station call letters, city of license, the syllables that keep us from being a pirate. The on-air light deepened into a more serious red. The mics were live. I raised mine just enough to make sure the room understood what kind of honesty this would be. "Good morning," I said into the glass that reflected my face and our problem. "You're listening to Dead Reckoning with a man who doesn't have a DJ name and a woman with better posture than daylight. We're not taking calls." I brought the fader down to a polite 0 and turned back to Joe. The silence retained copy. I reached and put my hand at the back of her neck, thumb in the small notch I keep for emergencies that ought to be pleasures. Her eyes closed like a vote tallied in public. I kissed her. Jurisdiction, not apology. She answered like a woman who had been a plan for 12 hours and wanted 4 minutes to be a person with a mouth. My other hand slid along her ribs to her waist where the elastic knows what laws are for. I stopped because I like the man I wake up as, and depositions make terrible lullabies. She took my lower lip between her teeth for a beat that instructed the rest of the night, then laughed into my cheek, the laugh that has ferried me over worse bridges. "Do you still want to hit him?" she asked, not glancing at Theo. "I want to thank him for stepping back," I said, "and I want to owe him nothing else." "That I can live with," she said. I cued a track with the volume at 0 and let the waveform scroll like a polite lie. The studio hum increased, a nervous animal. "Tell me the worst thing you almost did," she said. "I sat in a motel parking lot with a key I didn't ask for," I said. "Watched a brass number try to pronounce my name. Laughed myself home because even my worst impulses prefer daylight." "I almost texted you proof," she said. "Screenshots, timestamps. I almost turned evidence into love. I deleted drafts and drank water in a lobby until my mouth remembered yours." Theo cleared his throat in the polite key. "Loadin' at 9, he said to the rack unit. "The van wants 4 backs and 0 speeches." "Coffee at 9, I said. We were building a new grammar out of simple sentences. I switched my mic on again and let the room hear what it had already witnessed. "We promised no calls," I said softly, "but I'll take a request from the woman in chair 3. I slid her fader up. "Ask for something we can play with our mouths closed." She leaned toward the mic with a steadiness made of years of convincing chaotic rooms to vote for decency. "I request that you stand next to me in daylight," she said. "That you put your hand at the back of my neck under fluorescent lights. That you stop auditioning for the role of reasonable and apply for appetite." "Granted," I said, and played 3 seconds of room tone as if it were a hymn. I pulled her fader down. We smiled in that stupid, expensive way people do when they just told the truth in public and survived the taxation. We kept our clothes. We kept our job applications to the future. We made heat that could walk through a lobby without borrowing forgiveness. A siren somewhere found a chord with the air conditioner and tried to convince the night it was jazz. Joe slid her chair closer and rested her knees against mine. The contact was simple and complete. I touched the place below her ear where sentences rehearse before they're brave, and she made a sound that could get a man through February. "Invite me when you're interesting," I said, "not just when you're endangered." "I am inviting you," she said, voice a shade lower than policy. "Now." I pulled open the drawer where the station keeps Sharpies and gaffer and the kind of hope that smells like dust. I wrote in small letters on the console's metal edge where a cleaning rag never bothers. "Choose before the elevator does." She took the marker, turned her wrist to the board light, and wrote along the inside of her palm for the mirror later. "Appetite, not theater." I kissed the ink dry, and the on-air light refused to do us the courtesy of flickering. We let the clock eat 3 minutes while we told small truths the room would keep without gossip. She hates the fluorescent flicker in the community center hallway and loves it when I ignore it and kiss her anyway. I count the clicks of the rack mount relays when I'm scared, and they calm me like a metronome. She wants me ungentle with my restraint at least once a week. I want her laughter when my confidence goes to the store and forgets to come back. I put on a track at whisper volume, just enough piano to excuse our faces. Do something foolish, she said, but survivable. I slid her headset on, the padded cups becoming an excuse to touch her hair without policy. She closed her eyes and let me. I spoke into her ear, not on air. Say my name like you did the first time you loved it. She did, and the syllables arranged something inside me I'd been shelving for months. Theo looked at the program log like it might solve a math problem about distance. If I'm in the way, he said, say so and I'll be a hallway. You're a hallway, I said. At 9, you're a van. He nodded once, a small, employable absolution. That respectful step back. The city lives on it, and marriages do too. We talked about the elevator because we needed to make it small enough to walk around. How curiosity likes to dress as courage. How stopping was the only part anybody could keep. How tonight's almost had felt like a door practicing her name. We made the elevator a prop and gave the scene to ourselves. At 1:29, the board reminded me to run a station promo. I played the one about local journalism and the sound of a street that needs you. The voiceover promised truth in manageable portions. I turned the music down and faced Joe again. Today, I said into the mic, we learned that microphones don't make your voice more honest. They tax your lies at a higher rate. I killed the channel. The silence behaved like an adult. The facility groaned once, old wires refusing to be understated. Joe finished her coffee and set the cup on the rack with the quiet dignity of a woman who has lifted heavier things. I want to be watched, she said, low, by you, in rooms where it's legal. Yes, I said, because I have decided to become a man with fewer qualifying clauses. At 1:41, I opened the phone lines and didn't announce them. 3 calls came anyway, wrong numbers hunting for company. I let them ring out. The red lamps blinked their little emergencies and then gave up. No trials after 2, I said, not on air. Not again, she agreed. We write this tonight and spend it tomorrow. We stood. I came to her in the small space between the board and the wall, a geography that requires accuracy. Our mouths found terms that both of us could vote for. I stopped at the elastic again because rituals keep people from turning into stories with bad endings. She smiled without forgiveness, with appetite. Invite yourself to my daylight, she said. Bring that hand. I nodded, and the clock, satisfied, moved along. The last 10 minutes we used responsibly. Legal ID, a public service announcement about a food drive, a short instrumental from the station library that made the room smell like rain for reasons science cannot defend. Theo checked his watch, because morning comes at an equal speed for saints and suspects. I signed off the hour with call letters and thanks to nobody. The on-air light exhaled. The booth forgave us only in the sense that it forgot us. We left the faders down and the room clean. Ruth met us at the top of the stairs, sweater sleeves pushed, pencil behind her ear like a backup antenna. She looked at our faces with the diagnostic mercy of a woman who has watched better men and worse women use this building for weather and justice. Log signed, she asked. Every line, I said. Good, she said. Don't touch the rack on your way out, it remembers. Then quieter, you too, don't do trials after 2, stations don't do well with courtrooms. Outside the night had committed to a temperature. The parking lot light buzzed like a bee with tenure. We stood between 2 cars and practiced turning tomorrow into prose. She touched my wrist with 2 fingers, daylight legal, and I felt the instrument in my chest find its note. We made one plan: breakfast at the diner that forgives you for ordering pie at 8, followed by 4 hours of lifting things no one pays you to lift. At 9, the community center smelled like lemon spelling competence. Theo was already stacking tables with that modest inevitability that teaches gravity to behave. I carried the other end and let the sun choose my best posture. Joe moved through the room with a clipboard, and the mouth volunteers obey without punishing themselves. When she passed me, she tapped the ink on her palm with 2 fingers, and the morning decided to like us. During break, I set a coffee by Theo's elbow. "Thank you," I said, "for being the adult in the elevator." "Thank you," he said, "for renting a room where silence charges interest." He watched the doorway the way decent men look at exits, fondly, professionally. We loaded the van without speeches. Tape squealed, laughter landed without witnesses, a list sighed with relief. Gravity kept its side of the bargain. We didn't tell anyone about the studio. We taped a discarded station bumper sticker, "Mind your dead air," to the side of our fridge under the magnet shaped like the ridiculous boat we bought one summer we didn't ruin. Sometimes when the house auditions for courtroom, we sit at the kitchen table and count to 7 out loud, the delay time all radio keeps to save itself, and agree that our marriage gets the same. 7 seconds to choose appetite over theater. 7 seconds to hit the dump button on the version of us that wants to be a clever plaintiff instead of a generous witness. Sometimes she texts come and means stand next to me while I bend a room into competence and beauty. Sometimes I text come and mean watch me be a body before I become a plan. Sometimes we invite a friend who thinks proof is love and let them hold a pair of studio headphones while the on-air light scolds the room back into usefulness. We didn't stop admiring other people's competence. We did stop confusing it with permission. Heat is a temperature, not a verdict. Silence is a witness that charges double after midnight. We eat before we try to win. We sleep when the clock loses its manners. We put our hands on each other in daylight like the sun still issues licenses. And when the gossiping part of the city asks whether we have anything to add, we say we bought an hour where the microphones don't lie, kissed under a red light that records your temperature more than your story, wrote small words where a rag won't find them, choose before the elevator does, and left before 2, because that's the law now. No trials after 2. Return the key card. Let the station play songs for other people while we practice the kind of appetite that sounds good even when nobody is listening.